Good morning. It is Friday afternoon and I'm going to do a little walkthrough of the garden. This is the back side of our house and we have a no-dig garden bed in the works here with like a hugel culture type foundation. We have just been collecting and just sort of cold composting our garden scraps. So you can see there's parts of our Christmas tree. There's my shadow. Hello. You can see our Christmas tree, some old potting soil, lemons that have fallen from our tree, and a lot of lemon branches. This pile over here is actually just a big pile of dirt. I don't know if we're going to dig that up. We probably won't, but this doesn't really get that much morning sun anyway in the corner, so we might put something else there, maybe like a tree. That way it can reach up and get the sun that it needs. So the plan for this is to kind of get this to a place where it's a little more flattened. Similar to this mulch pile here, I probably will take the remains of this and put it up on top of there so it can continue decomposing. And then I'm going to put all that manure here and the garden soil right on top to start our no-dig bed. So the plan for this section back here is to have perennials, I think. Perennials and a cut flower garden. So that's the current plan. Along our back wall, we have a lot of vining plants, mostly coming from the neighbor's yard. It looks really bad right now, but in the summer, this whole wall looks really beautiful with trumpet vines. You can see on the top there, these are the leftover vines from that plant. It's really hard to maintain, so we're probably going to need to upgrade some of our power tools to be able to compensate for that. Like our poor hedge trimmer couldn't really stand up to those vines. We also might need like a ladder or something. You can see though, I think these are black-eyed Susans, so there's other type of vining plants. There's a lot of passion fruit vines as well. We get a lot of the butterflies that like the passion fruit vines. And there's like an evergreen ivy that grows on that side, but I think that's from our yard. So I'll have to figure out where the evergreen is coming from and then see what I can do about extending it here because it looks pretty dead in the winter time. So this looks pretty sad right now, but this is our lemon trees. When we first moved in, they looked a lot smaller and more compact. I did not know how to trim or to prune a lemon tree, so I didn't prune it this year. So it last year when we first moved in. So it kind of got really, sorry, there's an airplane. I'm not sure if you can hear that. Okay, so the problem with our lemon tree is that we didn't prune it the year we moved in, so it got really overgrown, which was fine because I wanted to learn a little bit more about how to prune trees. And so I came up with a strategy that I started on this small tree first, where I pruned half of the tree I pruned as much dead branches as I could from underneath it. It was pretty bad when we first moved in. And then took off a lot of the growth on half of the tree and left the other half just so that it would be all right. And you can see it already started to bounce back. Like the leaves are looking a lot healthier than they did before. Most of the tree was covered in leaves like this, where it was kind of not fully green, yellowing, it's got spots. So I wanted to kind of refresh the tree, and you can tell this is the oldest growth, and I think I did this maybe 3 months ago. So it's growing back really nicely, and I wasn't as afraid to do the same thing to the bigger tree. And both of these trees were loaded with lemons this season, so we've had so many lemons to give away. these 2 laundry baskets full of lemons came from pruning the tree yesterday, and we have actually just been donating this to a local oyster bar. So yeah, it looks pretty drastic, but I can assure you it's going to be a lot better to cut the tree down like this, because this is the type of growth that was underneath the entire tree. You can see there's like rotting fruits, dead branches, and just a lot of crisscrossing action. So in my brief study of pruning citrus trees, you want to try to shape the tree so that the branches are at least not going to cross into each other. And I don't think the previous owners did that. If you can see, oh look, I just stepped on the rotting lemons, which are good for the soil, but not good for my Crocs. So you can see under here, it's just like incredibly tangled, and the branches are just growing every which way to try to achieve sunlight. And I know that it's really important for the health of the tree to have a clear canopy. So that's why I focused on clearing half of the tree for this year, and I'll save the other half of the tree for next year. That way we still have lemon production and I don't completely stress the tree out. So these are the clean cuts that we've made. We just sacrificed a lot of these branches because it just was not, it was just really hard for us to get through the lemons. And you can see we already have some growth from, I think we did this about 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's just, I think it's gonna bounce back. I'm not worried. The one thing I know I need to do, which I have, I just have to order it. I'm gonna try to protect the bark here with some fabric, some tree fabric. It hasn't really been too sunny. It's been kind of cloudy and rainy. So the next time I look at the forecast and it looks like we don't have that much cloudiness, I'm going to come out and just wrap the tree with something that I have. I have like some frost cover that I could use, but I'm going to try to protect the bark. So if anyone has any other tips or information, or if you guys think I've just totally killed my tree, please let me know. That way I can at least try to prevent some sort of horrible event. Moving away from the north side of the backyard, we're now on the south side. This is my in-ground raised bed section. I have a couple of containers here. So this is a moringa plant that my aunt bought for me, which was doing really well when I first got it, but I think the range just kind of decimated it. So I'm gonna see if this is even still worth trying to keep alive, but otherwise I'm going to plant some bulbs around here and see if we can get some spring bulbs. This is my composting tumbler, which is probably just not doing so great right now because of all the storms that we've had. I think the problem is this accumulates a lot of water, and so it's just collecting a lot of flies. I haven't really checked on it, but it's actually got way less flies now than before the rain. So I don't know, I moved it. It used to be over there, but I moved it over here so that it can get a lot more sun and warm up to help with the composting. Here is a vertical 4-tier planter that I got off of Amazon. I used to have these in my garden when I lived out in the Riverside area. Our home back then didn't have a lot of grass. It was just pretty much concrete, and there was like a wall of planter space in the back. And so I needed to do a lot of container gardening, and I fell in love with these vertical planters because I could plant things high up, which kept it away from any critters, which honestly we didn't have that many in our old house. But I am noticing that the stuff I planted here, I think I had a cover crop of radish that did not do well. Because they were being eaten by squirrels. So we have a really bad squirrel problem. But the goal for this was to make it a completely it was just supposed to have strawberries because my son loves fresh strawberries, like ripe strawberries. So he can eat those all day. And I don't know if I'm going to plant the strawberries in here anymore because I'm afraid that the squirrels will get to them. So I need to figure out a way to protect this planter. Continuing the raised bed section, I have here a sub pod, which is a worm composting bin that you can plant in ground. I don't have anything in here right now because I don't have any worms. But the idea is you could put your kitchen scraps in here and the worms will come in from your garden bed into these side holes here, and they'll eat the compost that you put in here, and they'll poop in here and go back out into your garden bed. I had plans for this section, but I really was not happy with the placement of it. I was already worried that putting the garden bed in the back corner here would mean we wouldn't get a lot of sun. So there wasn't really much stuff I would want to plant here. And also, since it's like really close to the walls of our backyard neighbors, this is where the squirrels like to run and hide. So I was worried that whatever I would put here would get eaten by squirrels anyway. So instead, I planted the gardenias that my husband purchased and tried to plant in our front yard. But you can see they did not do very well in the front yard because there's just, the dirt quality there is just awful. Like it's just bare dirt. There's no soil life or anything. But here, there's a lot more soil life. But the problem is we're dealing with this ivy back here. So I have to figure out, like you can see, it's just growing out of the actual garden bed, and it's because we didn't put anything underneath this. This is just bare dirt. So I'm not really sure what's gonna come out of here. I just hope that the gardenias come back, and if not, I can just pull them out and find something else to put in there. So here are my raised in-ground beds, and these are really just from Amazon. They're pretty affordable. I enjoyed growing out of these two beds in the late summer. We planted tomatoes, and we got a few cherry tomato harvests before it got too cold. Because this is the south side of the wall, the south side of our yard. This got the most sun. This area got the most sun in the summer, but the sun now drops down the horizon, and we now don't get any of the sun from behind this fence. So yeah, I planted a cover crop here because I knew I didn't want to grow anything in the winter. I just wasn't confident that this area would get that much sun anyway. I'm so glad I didn't do that, and I just put a cover crop instead, because look at how thick it grew back. It's just so nice, and I know that if I get closer to spring, I just need to chop all this up and let it decompose on top of the dirt, and that's just more nutrients for the soil. Now these two beds are actually my newest garden beds. I also got them from Amazon. I wanted something smaller, not as long, but also wider, so these are just like the perfect shape. I'm testing out different sizes of in-ground beds. Since these are my first season growing in here, I'm not really sure why this did better than this one. I think because I put cardboard under here to prevent grass from growing up. It's not getting as much water as that, but you know, pros and cons of doing it. So I don't have much grass here, but then that's getting a lot more water. But the goal for these two is actually to plant flowers. I want to have some cutting flowers here, so like zinnias and cosmos, or even just straight up marigolds would be nice. So flowers here, vegetables here, tall vegetables actually. I found that the indeterminate tomatoes that I grew in here grew way better than the garden beds than I have, that I'll show you in a little bit, and I'll explain why. But the cherry tomatoes grew about 5 to 6 feet, and there was plenty of room for them to do that. So I really like growing tall crop in these beds. So I'll definitely look into growing something for spring That's either tall or vining. And then flowers here. The sub-pod bed, we'll just see how those gardenias do. If not, I have plenty of other things I'd like to put there anyway. Maybe some bulbs or some perennials. And then this tower here is the strawberry tower, which I need to figure out how to protect. I do have a greenhouse that I'm not really using. I'm storing my son's pool, inflatable pool in it, so I might just repurpose that greenhouse to cover that. And then maybe bulbs in the potentially failed moringa tree. Alright, so we just finished going over the in-ground raised bed section. I'm now gonna walk through probably the main part of the garden. So here we have my workstation, which is actually fairly new. This potting bench my husband bought for Christmas, and we just assembled before the rains. And I originally wanted to build something custom, so I bought plans off of Etsy, and I was so excited to do it, but it also would have taken a lot of resources and a lot of work, and I wasn't even sure if I was gonna be in love with it. So my husband actually made a great call in just getting a pre-built kit. That way I can test it out and see what I like and don't like, and it's also a small enough footprint that I still have a lot of room here to do work. So on either side of the potting bench, I have these mini greenhouses. These are actually the really cheap, I won't say cheap, the affordable greenhouses that you can build. It's just pretty lightweight material, but it's got really durable connectors, and the shelving is pretty okay too. These are normally covered in a PVC, which I do not like because I live in zone 10 and the PVC is just way too hot for our area. We don't even really get any frost, so I don't need the greenhouse to protect from cold. What I actually need the greenhouse for is to protect from the heat and also to put seedlings in. So during the summer, what I did was I didn't use the tarp that it came with, and I bought these frost row covers that I cut into the very specific shape of the tops of these greenhouses, and I would put the seeds in here. So the seeds would get maybe 90% of sun, which was perfect. Alright, so I had to change a dirty toddler diaper. Shoutouts to my mother-in-law who's watching him right now while I film this. Alright, so where was I? Yeah, so I primarily only used the top shelf of these greenhouses to grow seeds. I would probably use the whole tier system if I had my greenhouses on that wall, because this fence obviously shades out the majority of this section. So in the summer, these seeds still get enough sun so that they can germinate and grow healthily, and they're also protected under this frost cover so it doesn't get too hot that it burns them. And I loved the system so much I got two. And what's nice about it is now I also have extra storage space. So I have my watering can, my seed starting supplies. These are my actual tools that I use in the garden. So we got zip ties, the stakes for my soaker hose. This is the only drip system I have right now. I need to upgrade before the summer. And these containers are actually from the dollar store, and honestly, because they're not in the sun, they actually stay pretty intact, and they've also kept all my stuff dry through the incredible amount of rains that we got. So just getting stuff at the dollar store was such a clutch move, to be honest, when I started out gardening seriously. Anyways, this is the work section of the garden. This is where I am doing most of my seeds starting and potting up, and this container I keep open bags of dirt just to keep them protected. So yeah, this is pretty much the work section, and where I store all my tools, and I had covered it up with all this tarp during the rain because I don't really have
I don't have an overhang that can really protect it, so we'll need to figure that out for the summer when it gets really hot. Okay, I had to stop recording because my neighbor was doing some banging. Okay, so moving on. Right across from my workstation, I have my garden stock vertical planters, and these are obviously, like, because I have 4 of them, one of my favorite gardening containers. There's a lot of videos out there about what these are, so I'm sure you guys can look it up, and I won't spend too much time on it. But I have 4 of these. I got my first 2 sets on Mother's Day, and then I got my second 2 sets, I think, around my birthday. These are vertical planters that have multiple containers in them. I have what they call the leaf version, which have shorter pockets but more tiers, and I have the original version, which have deeper pockets, about 10 inches, and less tiers, but you have deeper pockets. And you can see that I am growing some things still. I've already cleared this out. I may have posted it in a different video, so that I could plant my early spring crop, since it's technically still kind of winter time here in Zone 10A. But I left these marigolds for one more harvest, and a tender green Swiss chard that's still doing great, so I'm just gonna try to keep this guy going as long as possible. I've already eaten from it like 4 times, so it's still kind of going, which is why I've left it. Since these are fairly new to me, I haven't really planted anything in it yet, and you can see that I've labeled the things that we've got growing in there. My husband and I just kind of sprinkled some seeds for the spring, so it's mostly greens. This is bok choy, this is romaine, what do we have here? Spinach, cabbage, and then I planted a lot of bunching onions on the bottom tier because we have squirrel problems. And I think the first time we moved in here, I did try growing some like nasturtiums on my original tier because I thought it would be super pretty to see like the nasturtiums kind of flowing over and like crawling on the ground, but they kept getting eaten, so I'm pretty sure the squirrels can get to that point. And I know the squirrels did not eat my green onions that I had planted when we first moved in. So I'm hoping that putting the green onions, and I think I have garlic in that one, will continue to keep them away from the bottom tier and they don't care to climb up. So nothing's really growing yet, but we did just plant them, I want to say like 4 days ago. So it's going to take a little while for them to sprout.
So it's gonna take a little while.
Siri, why are you listening? We planted garlic on the base tier here. I don't really expect it to do much right now. This guy's kind of peeking out. Let's keep covering him up. This is a problem when there's like so much rain. I feel like it's making it really hard to do some gardening. Okay, let's see. So I have garlic on the first tier, and it's my first year growing garlic, so I don't really know what to expect. The second tier, we have some radish. This variety is called Sora OG. You can see it's already starting to peek out, and I really just planted this on the 16th, so that's been like 4 days. And the reason why I planted that particular variety is because I wanted something fast growing to just kind of make me motivated to continue tending to the garden. It's really hard when this side of the yard gets so little sun during this time. In the summer it's like blasted with sun, but during the winter time I don't get a lot of sun, so I didn't want to waste any time or energy or my supplies in gardening when there's really not much that's going to grow here. And you can already see that the radish seedlings are sprouting, which is so exciting because we really like literally just planted it. So if you are a new gardener and you're just starting out, I would suggest growing fast growing varieties. So the Sora OG and this, yeah, it's Sora OG. I think this takes Sora OG. Orgy, gross. This variety takes only 22 days to mature, so I am just really excited to have something fast that I can also take out and plant another thing afterwards. So marigold, still doing okay there. We left it in containers, snap peas. So I wanted some snap peas growing here, and what's really cool is this is a container variety, so it's not going to grow too much. It'll kind of just fall over like a hanging basket. And then on the top, I think we just sprinkled some like flowers. I'm pretty sure it was flower seeds. Yeah, you can see this is the we didn't really bury it. We should have. But I'll just tamp it in a little bit more. I can't remember what flower we planted up here. They're round and curly, so I think it's going to. Oh, it did sprout. I should probably just leave it alone. But you can see it's already growing. Yeah, I'll just leave it alone. It knows what it's doing. It's a plant. It's done this for millions of years. Oh, calendula, that's what it is. So we planted calendula on the top. In the summer, I had basil growing out here, which was awesome because it got really tall. And so it kind of added more height, and it was kind of like a wall of basil. And I think for the summer, I'm going to find some dwarf sunflower varieties. That way I can have sunflowers growing on the top. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for what I have here in the green stock planters. I'm actually super tempted to buy 2 more because there's a sale going on right now. Buy one, get one half off, which is like great. I don't think I have any more room for these tall guys, but I might get some short ones because they have multiple versions. So they have like this 5-tier original, which is the tallest 5-tier, and then they have a shorter one, which is just 3 tiers. And then they have the 7-tier leaf, and I think a 5. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll leave a comment if I can fact check myself when I edit the video. But I don't know, we'll see. We'll see if in the next video I buy 2 more, and if I do, like, yay for me. If not, then yay for me because I'm saving money. And finally, I think we get to the heart of my garden. So this area is the sunniest section of the south side of our backyard. There is actually bare ground here, so you see there's sidewalk there and then dirt here. There was nothing here when we moved in, and so I actually just put these Birdie's raised garden beds here. I have a total of 3. This is the tall version, so there's a short one that's about half the height, and then there's the tall. I prefer the tall because my husband's back he's got a bad back, so we try to make gardening fun for him, and that's why I like opting for the tall raised beds and these vertical planters, because he doesn't have to bend over like he has to do on these ones. So I did mention earlier that growing the tall crops like the indeterminate tomatoes was actually really good to do here because there was so much space for them to grow. In the summer, I actually had them in here and they grew like so tall that it kind of covered the windows, which I didn't mind, but it was really hard to manage because I literally had to climb into the garden bed to trellis it up onto these garden bamboo stakes. And I'm not kidding you, like they literally grew past this 6-foot tall stake. So you can imagine, I had like a tomato forest, which was super cool in the summer, but it was just hard to maintain. So I think next year I will grow a crop that grows tall, maybe like sunflower or corn in the back, because you don't have to maintain that as much as tomatoes. And then I'll grow my indeterminate tomatoes in this bed where it's still low enough to the ground that no matter how tall it gets, I can still reach. This is my makeshift rainwater collecting bin. The water was like super clear when it was raining, but now it's getting kind of gross, so I don't know how much of this water I'll be using. I'll try to use a lot of it to water the green stock planters as much as I can, but it's getting kind of green, so I probably won't mess with it too much. I would love to one day have a rain collection system in our home. We don't even have gutters, which is kind of a bummer because I would have just gotten barrels, but we would have to install gutters as well. So I'm kind of making that a goal for maybe 2024 because I just have so much to do this year. So last year I resisted planting too much in these planters. I really only had these set up at first, and I wanted to just kind of learn how the sun travels on my yard, which is how I decided that this whole section here is probably where we get the most sun. So all the way along the back of these planters where the green stalk is gets the most sun, and this gets shaded halfway through the year, and then all the way in the back gets the most sun all year, which is why I think I'll have perennials and cut flowers back there so that they just always do fine. Okay, I'm getting distracted. So these are my birdies raised beds. We got two tall 8x8-in-1s. So what's nice about these raised beds is that they're modular, so you can actually take this apart and arrange it to various different shapes and sizes. This is just the normal large rectangle shape that you can get with the 8-in-1s, and I got two of them side by side, so I'm super excited for that. I planted a cover crop because, again, I did not think I was going to grow anything in the winter. I just wanted some time to refresh the soil, and you can see there's a lot of flies. So I think it's pretty much just too damp in there, and I need to cut it down before there's any major diseases. So yeah, this is just a mix. I'm gonna leave the link of where I got this mix from, but this is like, I think there's peas, radishes, ryegrass is somewhere down there. I don't know what these guys are, but they're like really thick stalks. They're super cool, and they're starting to flower, so I really need to get on that. But yeah, the goal for these two garden beds is to grow the main crops for the year. So you can see that even in like the winter time in the afternoon, since they're elevated, they get a ton of sunlight, and I'm really stoked about that because that means I can plan to grow a lot of things all year round as long as I push them towards the back, and then the shade loving plants in the front, which is like super easy to remember. Because they're lifted off the ground, there's a chance that it's not going to get attacked by squirrels all too much, as opposed to the ones that are all the way back and in the ground. But because I actually have this guy here, I feel like the squirrels just shimmy up here and eat all my crops anyway. So I'll have to figure out what to do about that, because last year I've tried to come up with so many different ways to keep the squirrels out, and none of them worked. The newest Birdie's raised bed is this little guy. I honestly wanted to add one more big size bed here, but I wasn't 100% sure if it was gonna fit, even though measurement wise it seemed like it would fit. But sometimes when you're like within an inch and a half inch, it's actually cutting it too close, and we have this thing here that I don't really think I can cover. So I got a small one here, which you can see the soil isn't as nice. Like, I just filled this up like halfway through the year, so this has not been grown in yet, other than this cover crop, and you can see that it's just the soil life is not as advanced because it's not doing so good. So I don't plan to grow anything special in here other than maybe some flowers or some herbs, just to kind of bulk seed and just have it grow like this for the first season through spring, and then I'll probably turn it again and then grow something in the summer. So this is still kind of a work in progress. And real quick, another tangent, I found that making sure that you take care of your soil and putting the effort, time, and money into doing that and building a healthy soil ecosystem is just better in the long run than trying to plant things and spend money on plants and fertilizer and stuff, just because it's just, you know, it's nature doing what it's supposed to do. So I'm really taking that to heart this year and making sure that I protect the soil as much as possible before I think about the plants. So soil first, and you can see that it was such a good choice for me to do that, because I didn't grow much this winter, which is okay, but I did protect my soil down here with this really thick cover crop, and I'm going to be able to tear this down and then just throw it back on top for more organic matter, and it's just going to be better for the plant. That's really fun. I can't wait to tear this up. And last but not least, we have the back corner. This is my shame corner. I honestly just didn't have much time last year to get anything together except put these shelves together. This is an old dining table that we didn't end up liking in the house, and so I moved it out here to store stuff, and it's not gonna last. So I can't wait to dig this out, take this out, and clear the space for storing more things. I would love to get a tool shed this year so that I can keep all this out of sight and actually maybe fit one more, maybe a round planter or something, and just make use of the space. But for now, I'll just work with what I have. And I'd love to, by the end of the year, at least clear this section out and get some climbing rose plants for this section so that we kind of have like a rose tunnel leading into the rest of the garden. So this is gonna be the shame corner for the year. I'm not gonna really spend too much time on taking care of it because there's already a lot to do. All right, well, thank you guys for joining me on my first official garden tour. I had a lot of fun talking about what's in my garden and what I plan to plant, and I can't wait to see what happens the rest of the season. Thank you guys for stopping by my brand new gardening channel. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I would love if you subscribe so that you can see me do more garden chores, like rip out all these fun cover crops. Look it's a radish. Cool. All right, thanks guys, bye.